is one of the best days of my life. How
Really?
about
Well,
for you?
today's the best day of my life, and I can say that with absolute certainty. So I guess I got you beat this time, but we'll see on Thursday how it is. But we got an exciting show for everyone here. We got some news related to finance, crypto, and a cool little live experiment for how we can. If you saw the title and thumbnail, you know what we're talking about in terms of the censorship problem across all of social media. And there's one platform whose whole brand is against that, but their product's just not good enough. So what we're going to do is go through basically a breakdown of Rumble. If you've never heard of that platform, it's a competitor to YouTube. I think we're live streaming on there right now. I tried to, and they're trying to position themselves as the free speech platform. And so if they can get their product better, there's a big opportunity for that as tides change. But we'll break that down at the end. Keith, I'll give the
Yeah.
floor to you. Go through whatever you want to start with.
Yeah. Well, just to quickly speak on the Rumble thing, it's like it's interesting how I guess like 2020, I think, at least in the United States, was a huge inflection point for kind of like free speech and trying to find and create these platforms where you could have that dialogue. And I say 2020, but I guess it was really 2021-ish
Mm-hmm.
when we had our president kind of like leaving office, and there was this big issue around like what he was doing. And even he himself, created his own social media platform. And so Rumble, I feel like maybe wasn't born out of that, but it became a lot more popular and more of an actual thing around that time, at least in the United States.
Totally. Yeah, no, 100%. I had never even really heard of Rumble until that stuff started to happen. And then I went on the platform, and a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about when we fully break it down becomes pretty obvious when you start studying it even a little bit. So it'll be a fun case study. I've been working in social media for nearly a decade. My whole business operates on it. So understanding all the stakeholders involved and what makes a social media platform go is kind of my whole thing. So that'll be fun. But let's start
Yeah.
with the news.
Yeah. So one of the big things that I saw in the news, and this is more culture than anything, but we had this young lady named Charlie Javis, who was just sentenced to 7 years in prison. And so this was a wild story that I actually hadn't heard anything about until I saw it in the news here. So I kind of started to dig a little bit deeper into like what this lady's story was. And it's actually very interesting. So essentially, we have like an almost, I hate to use the exact comparison, but Elizabeth Holmes kind of type of situation here, where we had a young lady who started a company when she was around 24 years old. And this company is called Frank. And what she was trying to do was to assist student borrowers in obtaining loans and financial aid with this company. And
Mm.
another thing that's funny about this lady is that she grew up in like Westchester, New York, and went to the Wharton School of Business. So it's like, you know, incredible, I imagine, right? Incredible upbringing as far as at least, you know, she wasn't probably struggling. I don't know her situation, but it kind of seems like she wasn't struggling. Anyways, so she had a few different incidents that kind of came up throughout her development of this company. So she started the company in 2016. In 2017, the United States Department of Education actually accused the company Frank of potentially misleading customers to believe it was affiliated with the US government, forcing the company to change its website from frankfafsa.com to frank.com. FAFSA is the financial aid sort of organization in the United States. And so they ended up settling with the Department of Education in 2018 around this. So already, early on, like having issues, doing things that aren't necessarily super ethical. In 2018, she was also sued by one of her co-founders over wage theft in Israel, because I think her partner was in Israel. And in 2021, she was ordered to pay $35,000 for this. So another little thing, look, growing a small company, you're going to potentially run into legal challenges and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, when it becomes a pattern, it's like, ooh. I kind of lost you a little bit. Would you say?
Yeah, true. If it's a bunch of things, I just said if it's a bunch of things in a row, then it's pretty hard to say like, oh, they're just trying to be scrappy. It's like, oh, this might be a pattern of behavior.
Yeah, and it's kind of this, yeah. So 100%. And so, anyways, in 2021, she actually ended up selling this company to JP Morgan for $175 million. And
Dang.
as she did that, she became a managing director of the company. Now, quickly after that, in 2022, JP Morgan actually filed a lawsuit for fraud against her, claiming that the data she reported was largely a fabrication and alleged that Javis had actually paid a data science professor around $18,000 for a list of more than 4 million fake student names to convince JP Morgan to purchase Frank.
Wow.
Pretty
Dang.
crazy. Pretty crazy.
That's insane.
So that was the beginning.
So
But
she,
the thing, one of the things that isn't always clear to everyone is like, okay, so she got sued by JP Morgan. Okay, great. Like that's a case that is a civil case, I imagine, right? But then a little bit later in 2023, you actually had federal prosecutors in Manhattan charge this lady with wire fraud affecting a financial institution and securities fraud and bank fraud and conspiracy. So
wow.
that same day, she got charged with fraud by the SEC. And that was when things got super serious for her. And just yesterday, apparently, she was actually sentenced to 7 years in prison for all of this that she did. So
Yeah, I got this right here. So this is what she looks like apparently. I've never even heard of this woman. So it's interesting that this is coming to light, and kind of feels like the same sort of vibe as that Thanos girl, or what's that? The girl
Elizabeth
who made,
Holmes.
yeah. And she's back tweeting and stuff now too, which is wild. America does love a comeback story, that's for sure. But yeah, this is a pretty insane situation. There's always, I'm sure more and more will come out as media starts to pick it up and dissect it a lot more. But definitely a fascinating story that's definitely got a lot of moving parts and a lot of serious big money, which is always a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, taking money from JP Morgan is a
It's
crazy thing to do.
Yeah, that's wild. Like they have unlimited resources to pursue you attempting to take that. Like that will not go unpunished. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
whether
that's
it's from them themselves and even just in New York, right? Like you're literally playing with like, the state of New York and the NYDFS, like they're,
yeah, you're not
I'm
gonna
sure,
win.
yeah, it's like that's like their unit, you know what I mean? Don't mess with their unit, my guy.
Totally.
So anyways, um the only other funny thing about this, and it's not funny, it's sad, I guess, but like she was put on the Forbes 30 under 30 list,
Oh wow.
and they like came out after this and placed her on the Hall of Shame, which featured 10 different picks that it wished that it could take back, which I thought was kind of funny. They've got like Sam Bankman-Fried on there and some other people that like fit in this category because it's a thing now. It's like we know that like watch out for people on the Forbes 30 under 30 list because
Yeah, totally. If you see sort of growth that is this large and this fast, usually there's something there, because as someone who's built businesses and is still in the process of building businesses to the size that I want, it's like wildly difficult. Like, and it almost seems like it's on purpose that it's so complicated and so difficult, because it makes it hard for people like you and I just to actually get up to compete with these people who are claiming like they know more than us, but really they just have access to more than we do. So it is really, really hard. So whenever I see things like this where their trajectory rate was just so absurd, I would always look into it a little bit more. Like I've been working on my business for like 9 or 10 years, and we haven't even scratched the surface as to what I would want to. And to see how big she got in a fairly short amount of time is pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in some ways, but also I mean, right now I think we're seeing that change a lot where people
AI's
can
changed that.
really, yeah,
But
start
that
companies really fast and,
but that's
get
because
crazy
like, AI,
valuations.
because why AI is such a big deal is, and this is very recent for like people like, because before you still need to go the venture route, right? Like if you wanted to do it, you could do it really quickly, but you'd have to sign away most of your business, right? Now with AI, you don't have to do that because you can deal with a lot of the little points where you get stuck. I call AI like the anti-stuck machine, where you'd come to a point and it would stop most people or cost too much money to proceed. Whereas you can actually just use AI to get it good enough to then move forward to the next step. That used to be so expensive. And it no longer is as much now, but it's still not easy. I think there's a brief moment in time when people who truly grasp the scope of the opportunity that's here will build something pretty massive. And I hope it's people like me and you who want to do good things and try to do good things. But like anything, I think the door will probably close. They'll probably make new rules. They'll probably do new things. But for now, there's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, really, when we go back to the internet itself, like once we had this opportunity to have like instant distribution, I think that alone kind of changed the landscape for how quickly you could build a business. We see
Yes.
it a lot in like the information space, right? But even in like we'll talk about YouTube a little bit today. I mean, YouTube went from nothing to being sold to Google for over $1 billion within
Billions.
18 months.
Totally. No, you're right. 100%. It's these pockets of time where you can come in and really infiltrate and make massive change where you're not diluting it to nothing, which is a lot of like what's preached in the VC world. But it's yeah, social media changed everything. And most people who aren't well versed in social media don't grasp. And this is like a fight I've been trying to have with people for a very long time, trying to convince them. Like my dad runs a company, and I was trying to sell them on content like a decade ago, dude. Like I could have made them the biggest pool company ever if they had listened to me, but they just thought I was full of shit. Right? They're like, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about because they couldn't grasp the numbers. It's hard to explain that one kid who knows what he's doing can get way more publicity than an entire news station. Right. And that's so possible. Like with what the CBC is doing, which is a Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's a state-owned media company, or they call it a crown corporation, whatever word you want to throw onto it. It's owned by the Canadian federal government, whatever. They are so big because back in the day, to run media, it used to be really, really expensive because you had to have a lot of experts involved just to get any piece of content out, even if it was poor. Now, like that's been democratized down to almost nothing with this phone, right? Like if you understand the strategy and you understand people better, I can achieve with like a team of 1/100th of the size what CBC does now. Like there's just so many people in those roles that really aren't necessary anymore because of what can be done with such smaller teams and more tools and accessibility that's out there. And that's why Canada changed their laws here. So we had some hate comments from a clip that I posted like last week about this exact problem. And like, say what you want. I don't like to touch politics all that much because I think it's all bullshit. Like I don't lean to the left or the right because I think they're both bullshit. They're not even real in my opinion. But with this in particular, like the liberals were voting to continue to fund this entity. So they were like, basically the people reporting on the coverage of the election were so unbelievably biased. They were basically cheering on like a local sports team for one party. And we're both everyone's paying into this, right? Like, that should be a crime. Like that should be criminally charged if you're cheering on and spewing bias for one party and what's supposed to be a bipartisan media. Like that's crazy. And that's also where it comes into play, right? Where when I said these things, right? Everyone's who's a big liberal here, and this country's very liberal. They're like, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Stop spewing conspiracy." It's like, dude, you don't know enough about the media business, and you clearly don't know enough about psychology, because I'm not literally saying like there's someone with a gun to their head being like, say it like this. I'm saying it's just natural incentive structures that's going to lead to that bias. And that's the scariest part, right? Is that censorship can come in many different ways, shapes, and forms. It's not just like, oh, you can't say this. It's maybe you won't get the opportunity, or there's going to be a lot of bias in what people think is a bipartisan or a neutral form. And it's just not accurate. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that kind of ties in a little bit to what we're talking about here with the censorship thing too. It's like, I think we've even discussed this maybe personally before, is like, just because information is not being suppressed does not mean that it's not there's still somewhat of a form of like censorship when you're pushing certain messages as well. And so there's a little bit of that as well to think about, as far as, and I have no idea about this whole situation in CBC. So this has been really fun for me, because I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. But
it's a very it's a very layered problem. And so I understand everyone's perspective in it, but most of the people who are arguing, they don't know enough about enough to have a really good opinion. Like, I honestly say that I'm in this small minority of Canadians that even have any sort of grasp on the scope of the situation and the incentive structure that's there, and also how the market has changed, right? So obviously the Canadian government has loved the fact that they were the sole source of truth when it came to media in Canada. Why wouldn't you love that as a government? Of course you would love that, right? But they had this big, massive, inflated budget to run this media company that now is getting their ass kicked because the landscape has changed. And so they're basically like the kid at school who like lost the game, and instead of like just saying, shit, I'll try harder next time, they take the ball with them so no one else can play. That's essentially what they're trying to do, because what they said is, they're like, and this is what all the liberals spew whenever they beef me. They're always like, no, this is just greedy. They're bots, man. I'm certain they have a bot farm going, man, because when we posted that clip, it had like 200 views, like 250 tops. And there was already like a very pre-written, felt like comment, and it got 14 upvotes within seconds.
Yeah.
That is,
Yeah.
I've been on social media posting for a decade. That is not real. Like
Yeah.
that is
That's crazy.
someone paying to do that. Whether that is a party or who knows, I don't know who's doing it. I'm not claiming anything, but that happened and I saw that and I know that's not real. So when they spew this, the fact that they say, oh, it's because of this big corporate greed, like that's a narrative that has been hammered down Canadians' throats for decades. That's why this country is so liberal and they hate America. Like they're shifting the tides here. Like a lot of Canadians, they really don't like America. They really hate big corporation. They're very anti-capitalist and it feels very manufactured, in my opinion, personally. And it's very convenient to blame someone that people understand and already know they maybe shouldn't like, right? Because of other media that they've heard. It's a lot more complicated to explain you lost, right? Like
Yeah.
it's changed. The media landscape has changed. And so what they say is that they're like, oh, well, YouTube should have to pay us to post our media stories there. It's like, why would they have to pay you any more than solo reporter? That's what they're asking for, which I think is ridiculous. Like, and the only people who would not think that's ridiculous is who doesn't understand how much could be achieved with so much less money. And if we're paying for this crown corporation, theoretically through our taxes and whatnot, then should we not have some say on how that thing is run? Like a little bit, you'd think? Go ahead.
So I want to double click on that thing because I actually I've never heard this term crown corporation.
I
Only
hadn't either, to be transparent. Someone commented on it. Yeah.
Because I only heard earlier this year when like Trudeau was like stepping down or resigning or was kind of being pushed out that Canada is technically like of the crown of the United Kingdom. I don't know exactly how it works. And I know that it's not like super strong ties to where they have real power, but like Canada is still kind of a part of the British like empire almost.
Canada's a very weird situation, and I like Canada. I used to love Canada, and I'm still proud to say that I'm Canadian. But it's a very weird dynamic. We're kind of like in a bunch of different pools at the same time. It's very strange, and we got a new prime minister here, Mark Carney, who he basically won because he was anti-Trump. Like literally, all these people here who said they hated Trump so much. I was like, if you hate him so much, why are you making your entire decision off of what you think is the farthest away from him? Like you're obsessed with this guy. If you hate him so much, like why are you talking about him 24/7? So Carney won, which is actually insane to think about it. He was only up for election for like less than half a year, I believe. Yeah, it was like maybe months. Let's ask how long, because that was crazy. Yes, I didn't think there was. Truthfully, I didn't think there was a chance that he would win, but I guess I underestimated the like developed hatred for Trump amongst Canadians. Like I really underestimated that. And that was my misjudging of things, because I guess I failed to consider how truly politicized this country is and how that's always the boogeyman. Like every problem we have is like Trump. They're like, Trump did this, Trump did that, Trump did this, Trump did that. He's on our news and media so freaking often, man.
That's
crazy.
So wild to think about. We are also kind of having a conversation in the United States about this, about foreign leaders being so important in our discussions every day. It's like, why are these foreign leaders so important to us? Anyways, another thing about Mark Carney is like most people don't really know who he is, but like he's a really important figure throughout history. He actually, I believe he's Canadian born, was once the actual governor of the Bank of Canada, and then he actually became the governor for the Bank of England for quite some time, which like for anyone ever to go from another country to then going and being the governor of their bank, of their central bank, is like a crazy thing. So he's got a lot of, international global kind of like power, and in that time in Bank of England was when he really solidified that position. So
there's a lot of people in England who don't like him. I'm sure there's some that do. I don't really have an opinion on the guy because unless I've known him personally, I know we're just seeing a character. But the one thing I will say is that he's the smartest prime minister we've had in a very long time. Like you can tell intelligence by how someone carries themselves. And also like what I really look for is in a live debate, I try to get into the mind of like how they're interpreting a question, which then allows me to understand their thinking systems. Right. And in doing that with Carney for a few hours, I was like, oh, this guy's so much smarter than everyone else in that room. It's not even close. And so once I saw that, I was like, oh, like the conservatives are probably cooked here, because all love to Maple Mega, which is the guy, Pierre Poilievre, I think his name is. And he basically was running as being just like Trump. And then that really came back to bite him in the ass when you did the whole tariff stuff in the States. And that's really why he lost. And also another thing in terms of media literacy, the conservative media team, like, y'all need to be fired, because he didn't go on the podcast circuit because they were worried about like what it might do. And I'm like, you guys are idiots, man. You guys, like, that is the dumbest shit ever. They're like worried about, oh, we don't want to connect him to Trump. It's like, well, your only opportunity for him to actually deliver his point and it to be heard is on a podcast. And they only let him do like 1 or 2 podcasts. Apparently Rogan asked him to go on and he said no. I was like, yo, whoever is working for the conservative media team, y'all need to be fired right now. That's crazy. You guys do not understand social media, because that is just a horrendous decision. And maybe there was some stuff I'm not privy to, so maybe y'all shouldn't be fired. Maybe y'all made the right call. But from an outsider's perspective, that was a crazy decision.
You know, and this hopefully ties pretty closely into what we're talking about today, Tier 2, because I actually had a conversation over the weekend about this and how, you know, oh my goodness, I can't think of who it was that was talking about this. Maybe it was even you. Anyways, there's this concept of like wherever the frontier of wherever the frontier of where the political kind of decision is being made is kind of like the most important thing. So just as an example, like 2008, Obama in the United States, the platform that like was huge at that time was I think it was like Facebook, right? Or whatever. It was like once you had social media, right? Like that changed the entire like place where the decision actually ended up taking place, as far as like where people were coming to the decision of whether we're going to make that call. And then it became in 2016, I think it was Facebook then. I can't remember what it was about Obama, but there was something that was there at the time.
Maybe
in 2016, I think it was Twitter, which is crazy. It's like, I don't want to say that, but I think it was Twitter.
I think it was Twitter, yeah. Because if I get back to when I had my Obama Hope shirt, like I think Twitter was one of the most prevalent platforms.
Wow, which is just so crazy, because that feels so long ago that I was like, it couldn't have been Twitter, right? But no, it was Twitter. And then 2016, Facebook, Cambridge Analytica in the United States, like were foreign governments like paying for ads on Facebook. And then 2020, what was it? Whatever. This past one, 2024, it was podcasts, right?
Yes.
And like that was the place where you needed to go if you wanted to actually get the election won. And so we're just in such a different era where these online platforms actually have much more sway than your local broadcast media. And it's not even a question anymore. We've seen exactly how hard, you know, Trump was. And even in here, Kamala at the same time, they were going to all of these places and trying to get it done. And they were even turning them down, like you're saying, when they knew that it might not actually favor them. So crazy how that's evolved.
It's the whole thing, right? And I think the market dictates what it wants until we lose control, or until it becomes like over censored, which we're going to go talk more about in a second. But I think the problem with politics in general is that the people involved in politics are very out of touch. Like they're very much in their own little echo chamber, and they're also very old. Like they skew a lot older than I think a lot of people who understand media, because media is tech and tech moves pretty quickly. And usually the younger people who grew up with it are just a lot more well-versed in terms of navigating that technology. And that's case in point here. Like the people calling the shots are probably the people who shouldn't be calling the shots because they don't know it, but they don't know enough to figure out who would actually matter. Like if I was running, like I could win elections like crazy. If they gave me budgets, I could make that thing go, because as long as you understand how social media platforms and messages spread, like it's not that complicated when you grasp the concept, which luckily for Trump, he had his son, who they give a lot of credit to, the really tall kid. And they're like, oh, he basically pushed me to go on all these podcasts. And I think what's next after that, or kind of an evolution of the podcast, is going to be live streams. Like we've talked about this again and again, and it's why this show is live in the first place, is when there's a like think about the major problems, right, with social media. Obviously censorship is one, but why are people going to social media platforms to fill? Like what's the missing thing in their life? They want information. Okay, well then what do you want information for? It needs to be trusted. You need to believe where it's coming from. That's getting harder and harder to do with AI. And also you want connection, right? Yep. How do you get connection on a piece of content if it's not live, it's not interactive, right? So I just think that live is going to become the kind of antidote to a lot of the things and issues that are currently present with social media that we'll walk through here shortly. And I think live streaming is only going to become increasingly bigger. And I think someone will develop a platform, probably blockchain based, that will be able to prove that it is the people there live. right? And I think that will mean so much to people that they will basically condition themselves back to like how TV used to be back in the day, where they would plan their whole day around what they wanted to watch most. I think that'll kind of come back.
Yeah. This was the other conversation I was having with some people over the weekend, is like, we've watched, first off, like cable, right? Where everything was kind of packaged into one thing. You'd buy that thing, you'd pay your $1,000 a year, you get access to everything. And then now what we've seen, and this is kind of a tangent, but
Go for it.
now what we've seen is like all of these different media platforms. We had Disney, Hulu, Netflix, Bodiba, HBO, and like that all intermediated that process. Again, it was all, spread out. And then all of a sudden now we're getting, I think it's where Amazon is like packaging everything back in. And now people are like back to having this live feed of like, what do you want to see today? And like kind of choosing exactly what you want. And I think this live thing is also taking that to another level of like you're back to watching TV live in real time. It's kind of like what we're getting back to.
It's crazy. Full circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of how humans go, man. The pendulum always swings, and we don't ever stop at a nice even ground, and it just swings the other way. And that's just the reality of human nature. And it's an opportunity, hopefully, for change though, too, because I do think that you get a way stronger indication of who the person is when it's live. And so in terms of the concept of censorship and
Right.
the weapon that is censorship, it's a lot harder to censor someone when people really know them. Right.
Mhm.
And in content, unless it's a live stream, you'll never get to truly know somebody, because it's very easy to make a script, make yourself sound a certain way, even read somebody else's words. Whereas in a live stream, it's their stream of consciousness, right? It's who that person is. It's how they think. You can learn so much. And case in point, like the person that we're going to talk about here when it comes to the Rumble platform, is there's one guy on there in particular who was off of every social media platform because he was crazy and spewing insane things that the other platforms didn't want. And he only had one platform he could stream on. And now he's building, like, I think a cult like following is a very appropriate word. Like, he's become massive on that platform. And in preparation for this episode, we're just keeping tabs on the different social platforms. And for research, I'm looking at like who are the big creators in the platform. And he's by far the biggest, dude. Like, he's got something like 410K followers now on Rumble.
Yeah,
Like, I
that's
didn't even know
crazy.
they had that many users, let alone freaking that many subscribers. And he was on a live stream, right? And this is what made me want to do this episode. Is I don't watch much of his content, but I jumped into the live stream and there were 42 to 45,000 people there live, Keith.
Crazy.
Dude,
Crazy.
live. And I was like, that's crazy. So then I did some research. I'm like, okay, well, I think most people who understand social media would say that the biggest live streamers have the biggest impact in terms of commerce and influence right now today. And so I looked up, like, what is Aiden Ross and Kai Cenat? They're the two biggest streamers. I'm like, what are their typical numbers? And on a high range, the numbers said that live is like 50K range. So he's touching that level of influence. Right. I was like,
Right.
that's crazy. I'm like, that makes me want to pay attention here, because if I was running the Rumble business, I would change a lot of things. And I built software products, so I understand how difficult this would be to change quickly. But the moment is ripe for them to come in and capture market share from YouTube.
Yeah, and just to tap on a little bit more of like the censorship thing, it's like just literally logistically, it's way harder to censor information that's being put out there live, right? Like
Yes,
you
true.
kind of can't.
Yes, that's a fantastic
So,
point, actually. That's actually really, really powerful, because if people are there live, they'll also all know at the same time that the censorship took place. That's one of the most important things, right? Because it's very easy to claim that I'm crazy when my video goes live and doesn't get many views, right? But I know in the back end what I typically get. And if you posted enough videos like I have, I can actually approximate exactly how many views it's going to get beforehand, right? So I can see if there's some sort of cooling or heating of certain content. That becomes apparent to everyone when it's done live.
100%.
That's huge, man. Yeah, that's really, really big. And I think that's going to become an increasingly big thing. And censorship is the scariest thing about censorship is that it's rarely done overtly, right? Like, it's usually done through economic means to create the censorship, right? And so the first point that I had in here, as we walked through a little bit of what we've had planned here, was talking about YouTube and how much it's sold for. And it's owned by Google now, for anybody who didn't know. And it was the second largest search engine on the planet. I'm sure ChatGPT has overtaken them on that front, if that counts.
I doubt it. I highly doubt that, honestly. No. Because YouTube, right, is in the billions and billions of users. I think ChatGPT could be coming up, but they're still way behind Google as far as the actual search content goes, and YouTube is not as far behind Google. But I could be wrong.
I don't think that's as crazy as you thought that it was. Let me see. How many searches per month does ChatGPT get? Let's see here. So ChatGPT gets approximately 4.61 billion visits per month. Okay, that's not the number I was looking for. Let's ask ChatGPT. Keep in mind, I'm asking ChatGPT, so that might be very biased. What are the largest search engines? You can include yourself. Engines, you can include yourself. So why search matters a lot is because if you control the mechanism of search, you control almost all the money because it's the highest intent traffic. That's why TikTok traffic is garbage, and TikTok achieved an incredibly successful scam, in my opinion. Like, not in the literal sense, they didn't scam anyone, but in terms of getting people to work for free and become addicted to working for free is crazy. Like, they give such little back in terms of what they're creating. So global web search, Google is obviously number one. Microsoft Bing they have as number two.
Interesting.
And then these numbers aren't good. So I'll do some more research on this, and then we'll come back next time. But what did you have a point you wanted to get to?
No. What were you just saying before that though? There was something on that I was going to say, I think.
Well, the point that I was going to make with the financial thing is that like if you control purchase intent, then you control money, right? Like, that's why Google is a massive company off of the back of Google search, because people always make purchases based off of problems. Problems are going to be depending on who you are, right? Some people's problems might be convenience-based problems. Others might be survival-based problems. Like, it totally depends on your situation, but a problem leads to a purchase. And so if you are the mechanism connecting people from like problem solution, you get to act as the middleman at scale for billions of people, which is unbelievably powerful. Like, it's difficult to quantify how that's like the whole backbone of Google. How Google is able to throw away billions of dollars every year on potential moonshots inside of their company and not care is because of how much money they were making off of Google search, which is why they're also freaking out about AI, because that's really their whole business.
Exactly. Yeah. And just to go a little bit deeper on like what that looks like, most of these platforms on the internet have evolved to be based upon the business model is they're getting paid for ads, right? So Google, when you type in something in Google, the first thing that pops up usually is a sponsored result. And I was actually just listening, I think, to one of your clients about this, who was talking about this. It's like technically that first result now on Google is not ads anymore. It's their AI thing, right? Because they need to compete, right? So already they're having to almost cannibalize their own business model in order to compete in the market. And so exactly. And so it's crazy to see that happen. And just to quickly wrap up on the advertising side. So you have intent-based advertising. So if I'm an advertiser and I want people to see my product as soon as they're typing in something that they're looking for actively, right? I'm going to pay a very high premium for that, right? So if it's a lawyer, for instance, like I need a lawyer, like I'm going to be also competing with every other lawyer potentially in that area, or that's looking for a specific age range or whatever it is that I'm using to target inside of Google. And it's going to potentially cost me like $1,000 for every click, depending upon what it is that I'm selling. And that number, by the way, is only going up over time because all of these businesses are having to actually optimize the back end of their systems to make sure that every click that they get is worth as much as possible. And whoever has the best back end system in place is going to be willing to pay more for that next click. Now, on the other side of all of this, you have, interruption-based marketing, right? So when you're scrolling on Facebook or you're scrolling on Instagram, right, or on TikTok, this is an interruption-based marketing, and it's nowhere near as effective or as costly as these intent-based advertising platforms. And with that, obviously, there's a whole other back end of all of this where there's the way that those platforms work more is like, rather than right as you need something and they're just trying to be there all the time. So what they focus more on is the retargeting aspect, right? So once you've clicked on something, instead of it being, oh, I'm ready to buy now, it's like, well, I'm going to hit you 7 more times this week. I'm going to hit you on this platform, I'm going to hit you on that platform, and eventually you will be at a higher intent level and you'll be ready to buy. So anyways, just wanted to kind of like break down the two different types of advertising and how those models work.
No, that's super important for everyone to know, because I take for granted that I know the stuff, but that was a super good catch. And that also really clearly explains the point that I was trying to make before about how TikTok executed like a really good scam for creators, because in YouTube, you made way more money because of that whole nature of intent, right? Intent in from the search engine, but also the intent behind the conscious decision to click something. That is implied intent, because you're willing to trade your time for the content, right? So naturally, there's a trade-off there that you're actually consciously signing up for. There's inherently within the product way higher level of intent, which is why there was way more money to go around. And when I spotted that, like 8 years ago, I made my whole business about YouTube, because I was like, this traffic will just convert at a way higher clip. Actually, one of my first ever affiliate partners, he told me point blank, he's like, you're our highest converting affiliate, and it's not even close. And so when he told me that, I was like, okay, that's my whole business. And I became obsessed with YouTube, and then just making all these different channels and consulting other people with their channels, because it works, right? Whereas this, I know exactly who I'm speaking to. I can speak to them with the context of that understanding. Whereas TikTok, I'm having to fight through noise so much, where people may watch like 100 videos in a session and remember none of them. Whereas on YouTube, either they came with a very specific problem and I'm the guy who can solve it and get compensated for that, or naturally they're going to spend a lot more time with me for me to build that relationship, making it far more likely that they convert. Which is why I really don't stress too much about short form content. I didn't up until this show. Like for us to grow this show, of course, we're going to have to actually use the whole short form game, because it can be good for just top of funnel exposure. But in terms of actually making dollars and cents, it's nowhere near as effective unless you're really, really skilled.
Yeah, man.
Does that all make sense?
100%. Yep.
Cool.
And then
Sweet.
I wanted to respond to Rising Complexity. You made it into the live today. We
What
are
up?
fantastic.
Rising Complexity, appreciate you being here. Appreciate you jumping in. Always a pleasure having you here. And we are talking social media. So let's before we jump into Rumble in particular, let's talk a little bit about YouTube in terms of, because like how can you censor them? Like, are you wearing a tinfoil hat? Whatever. So much like I said before, you influence people through economic stuff, right? Like dollars and cents. And so YouTube, the benefit of the implied intent or the higher intent of the traffic can actually be a con when it comes to things going wrong. So what I mean by that is, because everything is very high intent, when you see an ad on a video, subconsciously, you think they're very connected, right? So you think it's the same thing. You almost, from an outsider's perspective, they're watching the video thinking this is something they decided to put there, right? Which is not the case at all. As someone who creates content, like we have no say over who advertises on our videos. If we allow ads to go, YouTube then decides that. And so what happened with YouTube was what's called the adpocalypse. And this happened, I don't know, like 5 or 10 years ago, where a bunch of major advertisers withdrew their money unless YouTube would be more specific in terms of what they restrict, what they limit in terms of advertising. And so that's another way in terms of getting what you want without actually censoring anyone, is if you move the incentive structure where there's no way you'll make money if you talk about this. The reason you're talking about this in the first place for most people is to make money. And so in turn, they'll just naturally go their own way, the opposite of what you like, how you wanted it to go, right? So that's one way to do it. And then because of that, they changed the things dramatically. That's when they enacted the minimum threshold to be monetized. So back in the day, you could make money way faster. It's like my first channel got monetized really, really quickly. And then it actually got kicked out of monetization. So for like, I was making money and they're like, nope, get out of here. And then for like a long while, I then had to scratch and claw to get to that new numbers of 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. They did that because when this adpocalypse thing happened, there was way less advertising dollars to go around. So all of the big creators were pissed. So what YouTube did was they tried to, they took out all of the small people's money to put more money into the bigger, more influential people's money to keep them happy and satisfied. And so that was their solution to the problem. Truthfully, I think it was a fairly creative one given the circumstance. And I think it can make some sense. But if you're new and you're breaking in, it also has a ton of flaws because people don't click subscribe. And so to get monetized, you need to grind and get this arbitrary bullshit number of 1,000 subscribers. When even YouTube themselves basically says that subscribers don't really mean that much, then how is it one of the key gold star metrics that I have to hit to make any money on your platform, right?
That's a really good point there. They do very actively talk about how it doesn't matter anymore and this and that. And basically, by saying that to a creator, you're telling me that I need to find a different way to monetize my audience. And I know a lot of the different types of creators out there, or people that teach creators out there, definitely emphasize the importance of that, of like having a different way. Because you'll also, like you're saying, like you can get demonetized at any point in time for whatever you're saying, and like that's problematic for creators who are spending all their time, growing this platform and providing content to the platform. So yeah,
There's
it's definitely not a perfect system right now the way it works.
it's also one that's being developed in real time. So you don't always need to find a conspiracy all the time. Sometimes it's just the evolution of systems. Like for
Mhm.
example, my one buddy who's a YouTuber, he's like a, how would you describe his niche? He's like a microfinance YouTuber in terms of he helps people make like little bits of money online through a bunch of different means and like side gigs and stuff like that, or what do they call that stuff again? Side hustles. And he got randomly all of his videos demonetized because they changed some wording of a rule to accommodate something that was totally unrelated to him. And then his whole channel, his whole business got like seriously impacted. So you definitely want to be thoughtful about diversifying your presence and your business. And I always go to this one line that I drop all the time is that you don't want to build your dream home on somebody else's land. And a lot of
Mm.
people do that, which is why I'm very big on diversifying and owning something a little bit more like a podcast or an email list, just because the depth of connection and also one that you control is a very big deal, because these platforms can change at any given moment. They can change how the algorithms function. They can change how they pay you. Like nothing is set in stone. And a lot of people can get screwed pretty quickly when changes happen.
Yeah, just like another example of that has been Google throughout the years with their Panda updates and
Yes.
whatnot. Back in the day, it was like, when Google updated their algorithm. So there was like this cat and mouse chase, right? Where people would try to rank their websites on Google so that when you type in dog kennel near me, that they appear first,
Yep.
right?
SEO.
And yeah, SEO, search engine optimization, and we'll talk about how this has evolved as well. And so then people would they'd find out kind of like what the rules were for how to rank higher, and then they would like do that thing to an excess, right?
Yes.
So for instance, if you had a dog website, you would like put on your front page a bunch of different keywords about dogs and like maybe hide them, like put them at the bottom of the page or put them in like white text on a white background so that no one could see it, and you're just keyword stuffing. And then another one was backlinking. So like if you could get other websites to link to your website, it would rank higher in Google. And so people would play these whole cat and mouse games. There'd be whole businesses built off of the fact that like, oh, I'll get you backlinks, and
Yeah.
you could just go buy backlinks.
There still
And
are.
then interesting.
They're huge. They're and because it still works. Like for one of my software products, we have a backlink provider where their whole job is to go find us different backlinks that make sense and make them real. And so that didn't change. Just the capacity for Google to determine what is relevant versus what is not has improved. So like the game
Gotcha.
is still identical. It's just like identical is the wrong word. It still functions the same, just altered in a way to hopefully be a better system. And that's the thing, man, because these things, they change. And if you figure out how something works before the market does, like you can just make disproportionate returns, which is something that I saw with YouTube. And YouTube still works like this. So I'll give you some free game. If there's enough search traffic for a specific term, YouTube is able to confidently express or understand the intent behind the search. So if they have enough data, when you type in something that a lot of people are searching for, you will notice that sometimes that specific phrase that you search for isn't even in the title or thumbnail of that video, because they
Mm,
know enough about the intent behind the search to show you what you're actively looking for.
wow.
But if they don't have that, SEO works a lot like it used to on Google or YouTube. It's more direct, obvious, like direct correlation. So if you go find search terms where there's no, like not a lot of content there, or not even a ton of searches, if you just make a very simple video to fill that gap, you can rank on a brand new channel like that. And I have
Mm,
grown a bunch of businesses off of that exact thing that a lot of people would call boring. It's exactly how I've grown a bunch of my businesses doing that exact strategy. So finding different arbitrage opportunities for traffic and also understanding the value of the traffic. I think TikTok, I'm actually kind of grateful they did this. At first, I was kind of like, oh, no one cares about YouTube anymore. But then I realized I'm like, no one cares about YouTube anymore. This is fantastic. I can go get all the traffic. But TikTok convinced everyone that if you're not getting a million views, you're a loser. And that's just like so wrong. And I think that's why so many creators are broke, because they think more views equals more money. And if it's garbage traffic with no relationship and no business outcome off the end of it, you can have 1 billion views and still not make that much money. And if you're in certain parts of the world, you can't even monetize those views. Like for a very long time, Canadians couldn't even enter the TikTok creator fund. So I had millions and millions of views and made $0. Like that's just how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely this, like, I don't know if it's a resurgence, but this understanding of the fact that like quality of views is so much more important today. And YouTube is really the perfect platform for that, because you can create those long tail kind of keywords and things. And next thing you know, you've got like, even if you have 1,000 subscribers, like 1,000 subscribers, there's this one guy who does like roofing, not even roofing, but he like helps roofers scale their businesses. And he has like 2,000 subscribers, and he's making like millions of dollars every few months, because like the intent of the
The
people that are
outcome.
finding his content and watching is just massive. And yet the service that they're actually providing is huge.
Yeah.
So
That's it, man. Yeah, and had to fight to explain to clients why they should be doing this when I was running my agency, because YouTube is our core offering. And I always got grossly underpaid in terms of what I ended up making them, because there was just no understanding of what this
mhm,
meant, right? Because people who aren't experts, they look to signals, right? So RPM, or rates per million. It's like a French term in marketing where it's basically cost per 1,000 of something, right? So cost per 1,000 views. If you're looking at YouTube views or YouTube search views in particular, and you're comparing it to TikTok, my numbers always looked so insignificant. But whenever they worked with me, they always really liked me after, because of how much
mm,
money I made them. But selling them on the
mm,
concept was so hard. So I took so many L's in terms of what I got paid versus what the person ended up making. So that's why I was always trying to work to then build my own products, to then have that coming back to me, as it should have been the whole time, which is what we fought to do. But that's how I know all this stuff. And Keith has run a bunch of companies where he's advertised online, which is why we know all this shit, is that we've had to figure it out to try to make money, to try to grow the businesses.
RD asks, Ben, do you ever feel discouraged?
No, because that's a really good question. I would want more context there. Do I ever feel discouraged in terms of what? Like, I think that I have one of the fastest bounce back rates out of anyone I've ever met. And that is something that I've developed deliberately over time. Everyone does seem to focus on numbers. Yes. And the problem is that explaining what the numbers mean to someone who doesn't understand is nearly impossible, because they're always going to think that you're full of shit. Right. So that's one of the biggest things that I've fought as an agency owner is everyone I've dealt with, they've dealt with someone who has sold them the world and didn't know what they were talking about. So I'm constantly fighting an uphill battle of convincing them that I know what I'm doing. And because this is typically their baby, they watch us like a hawk instead of just letting us do our thing. And we have that with every client. I'm getting to a point now where I'm only ever going to take on clients if they just let me do what I know is right. Because even with some of my clients right now, I've talked to you about this the other night, Keith, where I have
Mhm.
a client that is like on paper amazing and they're really cool and they're all really nice people, but they just don't let me do what I know I should be doing. And so it hinders everything. That's just the nature of running a service-based business, unfortunately.
Yeah. Gosh, I forgot what I was going to say, but I would love to also to hear a little bit more, RD, about the like what you would expect Ben to be discouraged about.
Yeah.
Um, and then the thing I was thinking about is like there's usually two different aspects to uh, this content game. It's like what I've continued to have to realize is like, okay, I've got a ton of views, great, but like, are you converting those views into dollars? And that's
Mhm.
the real goal most of the time, I imagine. I mean, some people just want to be famous. Like that's not my goal.
No, me
Um,
neither.
and so it's like we have to, optimize both the growth of the views, if that even really matters that much, but then also the business side of it, just like we were talking about with the intent based versus the interruption based marketing. It's like um, I want to be able to have the best back end system in place so that for every view that I actually get, I'm maximizing the impact that that actually has on my life and the business's life. And so that's another thing that a lot of people might probably don't get as they're becoming clients with you. It's like they're just trying to potentially see numbers go up or whatever,
Yes.
but like there's such a different balance to that.
Totally. Yes, great point. And if you can get both of those right, so either figure out what we're talking about here, or hire someone like my agency to come in and get you the traffic that's high intent, that's what you want. But the fulfillment of closing that person is on you, right? That's another thing. Exactly what you're saying is that we've had a lot of people with no sales system in place, and then they're blaming us for the lack of conversion. It's like, well, you didn't make the person feel special. You expect them to pay 30 grand. Like, you got to make them feel seen, heard, appreciated, understood. And if you're not doing that, you can't expect someone to pay you obscene amounts of money. And so that's one thing that is so true. And I think that the coming wave of businesses, because people are very fatigued by horrible customer service, and I see that by our products. Like, the people treat us like shit, and I don't think because they're bad people. I just think they think everyone's out there to screw them over, so they default to aggression. And so with my software products, you should see the customer emails we get. Like, these people, from an outsider's perspective, they're evil. Like, they say crazy shit, but they think they're yelling at some massive company. They don't realize they're yelling at me and my girlfriend. Do you know what I mean? Like they have this big thing in their head. They're like, you ripped me off. And I'm like, you didn't click cancel, you fucking idiot. Sorry, excuse my French. But like, these people like are acting like I'm doing this big covert ops and somehow I stole their credit card. I'm like, you put it in and you didn't cancel the service. Yes, it charged you, but it is what it is. That's my own personal problems. But I honestly, even when I get these emails, like, I just laugh. And what I do, this is actually awesome. And so if you are in customer service, take this. Send them a video response. So use a software like Berrycast is what I use because I'm cheap and it was cheaper. Or you can use Loom. Loom is the big one. That's expensive, dude. So I use Berrycast. And when someone is just roasting the shit out of me, but I know they're ignorant as hell, I'll reply back being like, hey, John, how are you? Thanks so much. It's Ben Levitt here, the founder of XYZ. Like, here's your problem. Here's your problem. And I usually get back either nothing or sorry. Like, so I don't think people are all bad. They're just fatigued by horrible customer service, because we've been in a state of business for the last decade or so where it was growth at all costs, which meant the consumer suffered the most. And when also, I actually made a video about this yesterday for this exact thing, is that the big tech has conditioned us to expect everything to be free. When everything is free, you are the product. And that is not what you should want, because if you are the product, eventually your dollars don't mean anything. Things should cost money so that you decide who and what you want to support. If everything is free, you're giving money to the wrong people, because if someone can afford for something to be free, they're playing a very long game, which means they have a lot of money. You should want to pay for things so that people like Keith and I can actually start businesses to compete with these people you say you hate. It just drives me mental.
Yeah, I saw some of you talking on this earlier this week, and I was like, there's two sides of it that I was thinking about, because I'm like, yes, there is an entire incentive problem here that people aren't, they just aren't aware of it. And we had this moment in 2020 where there was like The Social Network or whatever, some Netflix series came out and like started to fully expose like the mainstream to the fact that they're the product and everything. But it hasn't mattered, right? Like, it's like we still use these platforms the same way. They still have the same leverage over us that they've always had, and they probably will until, like we've talked about before, we have certain types of like decentralized systems and blockchain-based systems that really like force them to have to like change their actual incentive models. But until that happens, we probably won't see it. And the only thing that will change in that regard is they'll have to release their own models of these like open source networks that allow people to have a little bit more a choice over how the platform is actually being used. But it's interesting that we're in a really tough spot with that, where we really don't have any sway, and we won't until we have these different types of things. Does your YouTube keep your ID blacklisted if you had another channel that got banned?
So to my understanding, you can start a new channel, but the guy that we're referring to, Nick Fuentes, because they recently came out and said that they wrongfully restricted a bunch of channels. And so Nick wasn't overtly mentioned in that press release. So he's like, oh, maybe I'm good to start a channel. He started one and got shut down right away. So I don't think technically it does, but if someone's looking for you, they're going to find you pretty quickly when they see a channel that is your name that gets a ton of subscribers. So I think it depends on the scope and scale of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the ID part, I don't know if you meant your literal ID. I heard that like YouTube was gonna start like restricting people if they were underage or something, and you had to like submit your ID if they like
Instagram does that too, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that, but also another thing about these platforms is like they won't just, I mean, your ID is obviously pretty much as legit as it gets, but they can also track your IP. And stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways that they can try to keep you off the platform. This is both as an advertiser an issue, and also as a creator an issue that you can.
There's so much power, man. I think that we have to collectively take back our power and realize that the scam was everything being free. Like, that was the scam. Ironically, we all thought that this was the best deal. That was a shit deal. That's why everything is crazy. That's why the power is in the hand of such a few, because only they could afford to make it free. And then through doing that, that's why almost every problem that we talk about economically is connected to that, because not only do they now control thought. We talked about this
Mhm.
before, but like not only do they control the money, they also control how you think, which is crazy. Like you should want to go to people's Patreons and you should want to do this stuff to empower people with the messages that you believe in to do the things that you hope they're doing. So yeah, I get really fired up about this stuff because the consequences of being ignorant are just so high. And I try to have these conversations with people, and I'm understanding of how much more I know about this stuff in particular due to my professional experiences, but I'm always shocked. And I think this is probably something that is partially innate within people, but also partially deliberately designed, is how ego is steering the car all the time. Like people can't be wrong ever. Or like, I think we need to really change our relationship with, if you've never heard something before, you're not wrong for having not heard it before. Change your relationship to be giving to like, when you're given new information, that should be something that is exciting. I'm happy by this. This doesn't mean that you're a loser because you didn't hear it before. That's something that I run into all the time.
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's one of the key things to being able to continue to grow and operate at a higher level is being able to just say, hey, I'm wrong as quickly as you possibly can.
Dude, that's a
Uh,
cheat code, man.
yeah.
Because then you can be right
Um,
the next time. Like you don't got to be right all
exactly.
the time, man. A lot of people miss out on a lot of education, and also a lot of times, like I've seen this firsthand. I've tried to educate the people in my life, my family, my friends, and they like they don't understand. I'm coming from a place of like, I know how valuable this is. I'm trying to give it to you, and so they go into a place of like, oh, I'm not learning it fast because they think because I know it now, I learned it like this too. Which is like, no, I had to actually learn this thing. I'm just trying to expedite your learning so that you can get the value that I've got out that I've had to work really hard for. But unfortunately, people have a very bad relationship with that for the most part. So if your life is bad or you don't like it, that's probably why. Like you need to educate yourself a lot more and become really cool with being educated and actually find that fun and exciting. Like I know that a lot of my friends that I grew up with, I saw their situation and I knew how they would end up, and it's happened exactly like I thought it would, because they were coming from a place where they just stopped learning. And I'm like, bro,
Mhm.
if you don't keep learning as these systems change, you become easier to manipulate because you don't understand how they work in the first place.
Yeah, man. Um, I was just thinking as you were saying that how
Yeah.
if you like the people who complain the most are usually not going to be convinced any differently than their current thought patterns, right?
No.
Like they're going to stick very closely to that thought pattern, and therefore their life will remain the same. So I think
That's
you make a good point there.
Before we move on to Rumble, if this sounds like you or someone you know, hopefully you can send them this clip or this thing right here. So whatever you are currently in, your situation, people don't do things that don't serve them if they have the option to stop. Okay? So if you're inherently a very negative person right now, that started from somewhere. That may have started from a bad experience, that may have started from someone telling you something. It starts from a point in time, a place where either you said something or someone said something or you said something internally, and then thought was created, right? That thought was repeated enough times that created a belief. When you carry that belief out with you, you're basically going to create an action to take place, whether it's from you or what you're going to find that you're optimizing to find in your world. And then that thing just repeats, 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 repeats. And most people are destroying their own lives within their mind, and they don't even realize it. They're like career victims, and they're all in like a big failure cult. And they get more from complaining about their problems than they do from solving the problems, because it's also very easy to say, oh, I'm not a failure because I didn't try, basically, right? There's a lot of like hidden procrastination in saying like it's not worth it, or there's no opportunity to change it. You have to forcefully change how you think, your defaults and how you think. And when you do that enough times, then your whole situation can change. But you got to actually realize the significance of that feedback loop: thought, belief, action. It goes around in a circle, until you break the thought patterns. Your life will be the same forever, and that may be because of who you're around, what you're consuming, all that stuff. Go for it, Keith.
And like a hack to this too, I talk about this a little bit on my channel. Is like if you find yourself in the thought loop, then the first thing that you can do is actually to change your action.
Mm,
So it kind of sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but like one of the things that I tell people, like if you want your life to change, like literally just do something that you've never done before.
yeah, change it up.
Um, yeah, and do it like make it a routine, make it a habit to say, okay, Like literally the example that I was given was like, you drive a certain route every day. Like literally like just take a different route home one day. One day out of the week, you have to go down a street that you've never been down. Obviously, be safe. But but like do things like that. And like talk to someone when you're passing them by in a way that you wouldn't
Mm,
have done before. And like what ends up happening is now you've decided to do something different. And now the world around you is going to respond differently to that as well. Right. So now you've taken the power away from like you just being in your head, and you've actually gone out into the world, and the world now has to respond to a different version of you that you've just created on in the spontaneous way.
yes.
And that changes everything really fast.
That's actually possible. Like that's the cheat code is when you realize that you're making this thing, you can make it whatever you want. And you are one of the things that's getting created in real time, right? A lot of these people, they associate with their personality and they say these words that have these meanings that people have decided were related to them. And one of the most powerful things for me was I switched schools a lot. I may have mentioned this in a previous episode, but the point is powerful. And I was because there was already a funny guy in my class or a few funny guys, like I was constantly told that I wasn't funny. And so I didn't really care. I didn't really have any sort of opinion on that. But I was like, okay, I guess I'm not funny. Like I'll focus on doing the things that I'm good at. I then switched schools, and everyone thought I was hilarious. And I was like,
Mm,
and objectively, I don't think I'm that
mm,
funny. There's people who are way funnier than me. But I realized I was like, you might not even be the thing that you think you are, that you're telling yourself that you are. Right. Like I literally identified as somebody who wasn't funny because all of my friends who I guess that was the thing that they thought they had, they would fight to keep it. And so then when I went to the new school and everyone's laughing at all my dumb jokes, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, did someone pay all of them or like, what is this? And then I just realized that like you are deciding all of this stuff. And I think of the example of kids a lot too, where if a kid is shy, then their parent says out loud, like, oh, they're shy. That's a very
mhm.
dangerous thing because now that kid is going to identify as being shy for the rest of their life. And they also have that as a get out of discomfort zone. Oh, I don't want to do this. That's uncomfortable, even though I should because I'm shy. Shy is a choice. Like, I understand that. Like, I personally think the whole, like, the anxiety, feelings that you have from anxiety are real. Like, I'm never going to dispute the feelings are real. But I think a lot of people don't realize that they're playing a part in creating them in the first place. And that like the alleviating discomfort hides between going through it. Like if you go through the discomfort, you realize that it was all created in your head.
Hmm. Yeah, this is a little bit random, but I just wanted to tack it on.
Oh,
I
it's the
read a
best
book.
stuff.
I read a book earlier this year called Genome by Matt Ridley, and it was like published in 1999. And at that time, they had actually just finished like fully finding the human genome, which is kind of crazy. I'm like,
That's
wow,
huge.
uh, we're so early in genetics and whatnot. But anyways, the whole point of what I was about to say here is that another thing about like the parent like telling the kid they're shy is like, you know, not only they're telling the kid that, and then the kid makes associations around what that means, but then they also will treat the kid right in a way that makes
Mm,
them shy. Right, like you're creating the shyness out of the kid by the way that you treat them and the way that they're actually moving through life because of how you see them. And this came up in like a whole different kind of scenario in the book where it was like the sexuality of the kid as well, potentially being formed by the parents in the way that they're actually treating the kid. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong or anything. Like it's just a part of what science has kind of said is happening. Is like the way that people are being treated is changing their actual like genetic outcomes. Even like the way that your genes are expressed is
totally.
based upon your environment. And so that's what the whole book is pretty much about. It's very, very fascinating read.
That is. Yeah, I'll have to get the audiobook for that. That just makes complete sense to me, right? Because that whole feedback mechanism that we talked about with kids, they don't really understand the concept of free thought, right? They look for figures, they look for role models, and then they basically just parrot what they said, right? Like deep reflection is not part of the child experience. At least it shouldn't be for most people. I think I did a lot more of that as a kid than most kids, which is why people thought I was like 40 years old when I was like 12. But this rising complexity, right here, we got another comment in the chat. So I had to
Mhm.
do some inside work to find the sources of my pain in the now. So many past lessons, big and small, good and bad, ultimately helped me find a sense of direction and who I wanted to become. That's amazing, man. Super well written. And that's a common experience that anyone can have, right? When you change your relationship to things, the things end up changing, right? And I had another post that I posted not long ago where like my knee situation, I had 5 knee surgeries over the last uh, 5 years that left me on crutches for over a year. I basically couldn't do anything for 5 years, which is how I learned so much stuff. And then I also it basically bankrupted me. I had to pay for the surgeries, which were super expensive. And it basically was like, felt like a massive like F you to whoever was running the world, man. I was like, what did I do in a past life? And whenever I thought like that, it just got worse and worse and worse. There's so much power in almost being delusional and convincing yourself that this is the best thing that ever happened to you. Because when you do that, you detach importance to the thing that's keeping you down. Whatever you pay attention to, you assign significance toward inside your brain, right? So if you obsess over the fact that my knee is messed up and I start identifying it as I'm the guy with the messed up knee, why would my body or my reality, whatever's being shaped, why would it let it go? I'm getting something from that, right? That's what the whole point that I tried to make before. If human beings don't do things unless it's serving them, even if it seems like it's killing them, if you're getting some sort of something from it, it could just be even that you're addicted. When you think certain thoughts, you're releasing certain things into your body and you create feeling states. If you keep going back to that feeling state, naturally your body's going to associate importance to that and it's going to seek out opportunities to create those feelings again. And that's why you can just be going down a path that just ruins your life. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like how to tie all of this back in a little bit because we've gone down
We
a
went
whole
off
different
big
path
time.
now. But I think there is something here because when you were talking a little bit earlier about like this, like accepting everything is free and not taking control of our consumption patterns and things of that nature. I think what I took away from what you were saying is like the importance of actually curating your
Yes.
online experience, right? So, for instance, joining people's Patreons, like you said, and like going through online courses. Even honestly, like I am 100% a product of and a user of online education that's not official, like people
Me
that are
too.
just putting together programs and things like um when you can curate your consumption in that way, it's like reading a book in a sense where you're getting much more condensed information in a specific topic that it is that you're trying to learn. And we just happen to have video now where you can do that in an even more intimate kind of a setting. So yeah, like that's the thing that I think can be the takeaway here is like really curate your experiences online and be super intentional about every single second that you're spending on different content sources. And that can help you to really take your power back and even just your online life, which 100% is a huge part of everyone's lives right now. And that can help to change all of those external things as well.
Consumption shapes your reality of any form of consumption, right? And social media is really like a mirror into your mind, which is something that I think people should pay a lot more attention to, right? If you're someone who values your physical shape, when you step in front of the mirror, if you look really fat, you don't like how that feels, and then you try to make changes. Not no one's looking in the mirror of their mind, and that's the scariest part because when no one's looking at the mirror, the people calling the shots get to choose where you go, and that's a terrifying thing for me. And also, it should be an empowering thing for you, right? Because if you've seen those weight loss transformations, everyone now can kind of grasp that weight loss is possible, right? That's equally possible in the mind. You just have to realize that's possible. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it can't change. It can, and probably even faster. And honestly, like I guess I'm very biased because I'm a huge nerd who just loves to learn all the time. But you can become that if you start doing stuff where you're learning stuff, like you're learning things that then gets applied and your life changes. That's how you get a good addiction, right? Where you go and you find knowledge and then I apply it. Like I get that every day. Like let's say when I send Keith a voice note and I'm able to add on a little point to further develop his thought, or he's able to do the same for me. Like that creates a depth of connection that you really can't have any other way, and then you really become addicted to learning. So I think that makes great point. That's probably the most important thing on the planet right now is people being very deliberate with where they put their time because their whole reality, both physical, financial, etc., is being shaped up here by what they watch here.
100%, man.
Should we go into Rumble?
Let's talk Rumble.
Let's
I
do
think
it.
the thing is with Rumble is like they decided they were going to build a platform where people could try to at least uh, uh, where they could have more freedom of thought, right? It's kind of I think the major goal. And so in our lives of trying to find content, right, that we want to see, sometimes we have to go to different platforms to do it. And their whole moat, I guess, is having specific creators that just aren't even allowed anywhere else. So
Mm-hmm.
as you curate your experiences online, you might have to go to them to get it done. And you'll talk a little bit about how maybe that could be problematic depending upon how well the
Yeah,
site functions.
totally. Yeah, so that's very well teed up for me here to start on Rumble. So Rumble, exactly like what Keith just said, trying to be the free speech, freedom of thought, etc. But really, it started as like a right wing extremist place. Like let's call it what it is, like, or at least what the outsiders would say, right wing extreme, right? I don't have an opinion either way, but that's what it would be seen as. And so it definitely feels like that when you go to the platform. Like I say, whenever I use Rumble, it feels like I'm going to get a virus. And it's like, that's problematic, right? Because there's implied association, like we talked about, where when you send someone a link, like let's say, I have no opinion on anybody who creates content on that platform. Let's say Nick Fuentes, because he's a big name. Let's say you send someone his video and he's giving like the gospel, like the most important words that have ever been said. Most people won't listen because they'll be too fixated on what is this website you sent me to, right? Like that shit really does matter. And so they need to improve the experience, because right now there's a lot of people who are really coming to the platform for this Nick guy. And I've been watching his account grow like crazy. He already had a stranglehold in the platform. He was the biggest creator, I believe. And now he's getting people to come to this platform and actually make accounts basically just to watch him. Wow, he's at 411K now. Dang. Okay, this growth, it just continues to keep up. And so the problem that Rumble has here, which is what we're gonna do, is kind of a case study on how I would try to capture some market share from YouTube, is that problem that, like, this was clearly made by bros who were like, yeah, we're gonna give the power back to the people. Like, we're gonna let them talk. There's their truth, and probably a really good message, and that's how they got their initial users, and that probably fit the theme. But the new thing now is that you've already got those people. They're not going anywhere. You need to make the platform more friendly and a better experience for the people who will probably leave, right? So I really don't think with changes they could even really alienate their core customer, because they don't really have anywhere else to go for this kind of content. Like, they've just been conditioned that this is where they come. And even for the people who might start to dip their toes in this world, there's nothing to keep them there. It's a shitty experience. If I'm a creator on the back end, Keith, have you ever tried to post a video on Rumble?
I have not.
Bro, it looks like a Google Sheet, man. It's like super, super ghetto looking. Like, it does not look good. And because of that, like, it just doesn't make me want to use it as a creator. So they have this problem where they have this moment in time where people are really gravitating to this guy and a few other creators on this platform, but you don't have enough to keep them there. So they got to make some changes. I wrote some of them down here. UI UX overhaul, I think, needs to be done. It's got to feel less like a site that's going to give me a virus, or like a porn site, because it does feel like that right now. I think the discovery of content on that platform is really weak. Like, that's one of the biggest things with YouTube, is the fact that they really hammered down search, and their search experience is pretty good. The search experience on Rumble is horrendous. It is so bad. And so you got to think about the other things that will condition people to stay here, right? And so even if you get the people who watch like this kind of content who are on YouTube, and then you bring them over here, if you don't solve the other pain points that people go to YouTube to solve, you can't expect them to stay on Rumble. So you need to fix the search experience, the discovery experience. That's honestly one of the biggest ones. I made a video as a test for one of my software companies, and I literally search the exact, and maybe I'm doing something wrong. So if you're someone from the Rumble team, like, reach out to me and tell me how I'm an idiot. But I literally made an exact video with a keyword match. And when I search for it, I literally can't even find my own video when I search the keyword. It says there's no results. That's a problem. Like, I don't want to say the video because I don't want to like skew any of the data, but I'll try right now to see if it can come up. There's nothing. Like, the content that comes up is so unrelated to what I searched for. And that's clearly a problem with how their algorithm, or like their search algorithm, functions, because I'm literally typing in the exact phrase of my video and it doesn't pop up. Not even like page 2. I'm on page 2 right now. I still don't see my video. Like, this is a serious, serious problem. So that's another core thing where it's got to make sense. But if I was them, what I would do is I would partner with creators who have that really in-depth relationship, and I would probably focus on the whole live streaming thing. A lot of people don't live stream because live streaming is not that easy to do. It's a lot of tech that you got to figure out. If I were them, I would, again, I don't know how much money they have, but I would buy the platform we're using to stream right now called Riverside. I would integrate the tools into the platform. I would offer them for free for users, and basically say, come over here. This is the easiest way to live stream. You get all of these content tools, and they're accessible for you for free. Because I think that's how significant this moment in time is. I don't know what their war chest looks like. I don't know how much money they have, but I'm talking about in a perfect world. And then what I would also do is I would throw money at creators who have a very consistent and loyal following. So not people that get found a lot by new people, but by people who have like a really deep connection with their audience. That could be that could be vloggers, that could be very specific educational creators. Like I want like a consistent viewership, like a podcast. Like think Joe Rogan. I don't think these guys could afford Joe Rogan, but if I was them, I would find people who have that kind of connection at a smaller scale with a bunch of different people. And I was thinking about this too with connecting to the show with crypto is that I was like, man, imagine if they created basically like a tokenized like a token for Rumble and they allocated that to certain creators as basically like ownership stake in the success of this. Obviously, I don't know how to put that together, but that could be something that's really cool to actually incentivize people to come over here.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to do something big to really like change the trajectory of what they're doing. I think, the other thing that you kind of touched on a little bit is like even as a creator, right? Like if it's hard to do, like as a
You're
creator, it's
tapped.
already a lot of exactly like it's so much work. So like if you're telling me it's going to be any harder, like to like go to another platform, then that's not going to work. Like you almost need to get to the point to where your UX UI is that when you post to YouTube, it's automatically posted here. Like
It's got to be a
like
lot easier.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a very clunky experience for the creator that really needs to be solved. And I think the only way you do that is you give them value that they'd have to pay for elsewhere, which is why I think the
Mm,
Riverside acquisition would make so much sense. And I
love
don't
it.
know the size or the scale of any of these things, so I'm talking about my ass. But these guys are owned by some massive people. Like, have you ever looked into who owns Rumble?
Then talk to me about that.
Yeah. So this is crazy. Again, I'm pulling some of this from Wikipedia, some of the stuff I found online. So always fact check everything. I found it online, so it could be BS. Who knows, right? But from what I've seen, I believe that. Let me see if that actually went through, because I don't want to say anything too dumb. Because I like this guy. What's his name again? Dave. Yeah. Does Dave? So the original founder still holds a big voting majority, is my understanding, in it, and his name is. Let me find it for you guys. His name is Chris Pavlovsky, and he is the CEO of Rumble. And recently, they secured funding from Peter Thiel, which is Palantir. That's a name that we can't escape. So he's in it. And then, of course, Peter Thiel and his boy, JD Vance, he's also involved. And then the other person that I'm looking for is I'm just waiting for confirmation of this other person who's a big social media name. I just want to make sure that it's correct before I say anything. But obviously those are some incredibly powerful people with a lot of money, and the stakes here are so huge. If you could capture even a tiny fraction of YouTube and make it a better place for creators where people just start there, that could become insane. So okay, so what I was looking for was, does Dave Portnoy hold any ownership? And the answer is yes, indirectly and possibly personally. When Barstool Sports struck a deal with Rumble on January 22nd, 2024, Dave Portnoy said they took the deal mostly in Rumble stock. Okay,
Mm,
so 75 to 80% of the deal was equity, stock equity, and he referred to himself as a part owner. Okay, so maybe not in a literal legal sense, but basically through ownership, he achieves a very similar thing through stock. So that's another big thing where he's been silenced before or quieted by people, so he understands the significance of all of that. Who knows who the good guys are? I have no idea anymore, Keith. I really have no clue. But there is definitely a significant opportunity here if they could get things right to bring people over. Because I think that if you can ride the momentum of everyone being pissed about censorship, then you become a default place to go to. I genuinely think people want to hang out on Rumble. It's just a horrible experience.
yeah. Yeah, and that kills it. I was realizing this as I was talking to you a little bit earlier about this. It's like when you go to Rumble and you have a just worse even experience than what I'm seeing on YouTube. Like I'm just not even. I'm never gonna come back, and I'm not even gonna know why.
Yeah,
Like I'm just not even gonna think about it. It's just like, oh, this is weird, and switching off. Next thing.
I'm gone.
So it really makes that big of a difference. You were talking about like UX UI, and as someone who's like building apps yourself, you see that and you see what the metrics and things could look like and how
Dude,
it affects everything. So
it's such a big deal. If you don't hook people in there and think about what they're thinking about and doing the thinking for them, it becomes really difficult to create a product that they can consistently use that is as close to frictionless as possible. But here's what you come to, and this is actually a very good sign. It looks like they are really doubling down on lives, which is fantastic. I think
nice.
the
Yep.
way you take that to the next level is an acquisition or by giving tools, because It's a very clunky experience when you upload videos. And this is their homepage, which I would assume, it's very similar to YouTube. So this isn't really the problem. The problem is when you click into something or when you search for something, it's just a very clunky experience besides coming for the one thing you were coming for. And if you want to train the habit of coming back to this place without one specific purpose, you need to make it a better experience. So they have my feed here, which obviously is going to be a lot of crypto related stuff. There's a For You page. Okay, there's nothing on there, so that's not very helpful. Maybe I haven't watched enough. And then here's the browse page. They got gaming, viral. Like, what does that mean? Viral. Music, news. So it just doesn't feel right. I don't know exactly why, but the content itself is just, it's hard to find what you're looking for. And it just feels like effort is involved. And obviously this is a longer form content platform for the most part. So it is a different problem than say TikTok or Instagram even, but there's a huge opportunity here.
Yeah. And like the thing for me is like this even looks new to me. Like I didn't even know that they had this fresh of a
Yeah.
landing page because I haven't come back from the couple years that
Totally.
they got it wrong. So
yeah, completely. And I'm sure they're working towards this. They're probably going to do everything that I said, and they already had these ideas. Like I'm not saying anything groundbreaking if you work in this space, but it's just I think the core point of this is understanding the significance of how a platform like this can spread at a moment like this. Like this is really the only thing that could ever make Rumble actually be a competitor to YouTube, is a moment like this where there is such a desire for something different that only you have, right? And they can milk that as long as they can make it good enough to stick around. But case in point, I sent this to my mom, a video, like, because in preparation for this video, I was like, oh, here's the next topic that Keith, and I was like, what the heck is this site? And I'm like, that's the point. Right? I was like, that's the point. And then the other problem too is that how the ads on this platform, Keith, are crazy because they don't have the mass users to demand high quality advertisers as well, which is a part of the conversation that no one else really thinks about. But it's very important. When I see these clearly horrible AI ads that are selling scams, like I'm associating that with the platform.
100%. Yeah. And you talked about a little bit of opportunity potentially there as well on the ad side, but might keep that one, closer to the chest. But anyways,
yeah, if you know, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I mean, the whole thing, you mentioned what it kind of feels like a little bit earlier, and I think that's right on. And I just don't even use it. So it's like it's hard for me to really chip in much because I literally have never used it. There was one time where one of my creators was on there. They were doing a specific live thing there, and I tried to watch it. It had like 5 ads. It was like glitching out to where it wasn't like playing the thing. I'm like, yo, like I just watched that ad. Like, can you play the video now? And it just wasn't happening. And I just never went back. And so I think the thing that you pointed out that I think would be the most interesting is if they find a creative model for getting creators to come over. Like the crypto thing, I'm not gonna lie, like that would set them apart.
Totally.
And it would bring in potentially people who understand that a little bit better for sure, but then also people who are just like, oh, I can make money to post on Rumble, like cool. So we haven't seen any social media platform actually do this yet. We saw Reddit release like I think like a point system or something that was like really close to it, but they never actually launched like a token. And it's interesting to see who might make that move first and what it could really look like, because I mean, Meta obviously got shut down in the United States from even being able to discuss that really. But whoever gets that right is becomes like I mean, they already are countries, let's be clear, but they will be multiple countries that are like top 5 GDP countries when they do that.
Yeah, and Pump.Fun is a crypto first platform that's attempting to do this, but I think they're too crypto purists to ever get through. I just think they're too on the fringe. They're throwing obscene money at creators, but I don't think it'll attract the people that they need to attract because the people don't even know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so and I haven't studied them too much, but yeah, they're way too, even for me, I'm like, do I really want to play? Like, it's the same feeling of like, I actually don't even want to touch this. Like, I don't want my wallet on that website.
Totally, completely. So I think that why you focus on live creators is because that's the biggest depth of connection. And so that's where I would prioritize the funding towards creators, and then in the background be really spending a ton of money on optimizing the experience and slowly bringing people over. That could be even done without direct outreach in terms of if we solve this money problem, right? Like if they solve the distribution, you're just getting paid way more for way less views, or whatever it may be. Maybe even they throw like exclusivity agreements to them, or who knows how it could go. But I would solve the live problem first, which it seems like the people on their team are addressing. But you got to give them tools. You got to make it easier you got to solve my problems if you want me to solve yours. And if you're a creator like if they bought Riverside, it would solve almost all those problems, man, because the live streaming would be a lot more simple. They could stream in a bunch of different places. It also helps with clipping for short form, which is a big pain point for a lot of people. Riverside already has those tools. So if I'm these guys, I'm making a call to a platform like Riverside or Riverside themselves and trying to broker that deal, and then trying to, in the background, improve the experience of getting better advertisers, getting less sketchy UI UX. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking to myself about like if I'm Riverside though, I'm probably not going for much of anything, because it's like Riverside is sitting in such a unique spot. I don't really know anything about the finances of the company or whether it's fundraised or anything like that, but um, oof, lots of lots of runway for the growth of a platform like Riverside, StreamYard. I'm realizing I didn't even really realize how important StreamYard is and how many people trust it and use it as well. So there's a massive market there that they probably should sit in, and they're probably going to be the ones that go out and start making acquisitions. It might be that Riverside needs to buy Rumble.
Yeah. Whoever has the bigger chest is what I would recommend doing, because as long as the outcome is the same, I think it can be what people are looking for. But we'll see. It'll be definitely something that we follow. Hey, it'll be an interesting thing at the very least. I think they do have a serious content problem in addition to their UI UX limitations right now. So they have to solve that too. But I think how you get around that and buy yourself more time is the connection that is present with it, with live people. So, and also if you're new to creating content, that's definitely something that I would keep on your radar, because I do think that they're bringing in, so if they can get this right, the people like Nick are bringing in the opportunity to get it right. So if you're parked there early, you probably have a massive blue ocean, regardless of whatever niche that you're in. If you just start putting the content you're already making on Rumble, you'll probably be really happy that you did that if they're somehow able to pull this off. And for you, it's a bit of extra effort, like a very small amount of effort more if you've already made the video.
Love it, man. Love it.
Sweet. Well, if anyone's still here in the live chat, if y'all have any questions before we wrap up today's episode, please do not be shy. Let us know. Keith, did you have anything else you want to go over?
Nah, man. Definitely appreciate all the people that are here live. As always, we're going to be doing this every Tuesday and Thursday live at 12 p.m. Eastern. I think this Thursday a little bit of a break, but
well, we'll have an episode coming out at Thursday it'll be releasing at 12 p.m. And then one other point that I want to say here that we had from the news section that I forgot to mention was that Eric Trump had said that Q4 will be great for Bitcoin and crypto. So definitely recommend going over and getting educated on X about all the stuff that's happening. And go ahead.
There's a little bit of a meme around that too, because I think it was earlier this year. He was like, buy the dip. And then like crypto still dropped by like 20%.
Yeah. He also said, he's like, ETH looks really good here. And then ETH went down a ton too. So that's, that's hilarious. But actually, that's a little teaser for Thursdays. Thursday's episode will be all about Ethereum. So diving deep into the origin of that project, why it's so significant, why you're about to hear about it everywhere, and who the names are that is going to be pushing that story, and to hopefully help you make some good decisions. But that's all from my end. Keith, anything from you?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Appreciate you all so much. We'll see you on Thursday.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Peace.